Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking the Flash episode Marathon. And this is our kind of wrap up for Crisis on Infinite Earths that's there to sort of really get us back rolling with what's going on in the Flash with our subplot and also kind of help us to understand what the new status quo is with the universe, the multiverse, explain some of the new rules, changes, and all of that. All in all, I thought this was a pretty solid episode. Um, I do like that Iris is getting this nice arc where it's all mostly about her. I mean, of course, Barry's going to get involved because he's the Flash, and this is what they do, what he does. But having her, Cecile, and Allegra, and crud, I'm blanking on the name of Cisco's girlfriend, Camille. Yeah, that's right. That's right, Camille, or yeah, Camille. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Kind of having them all have something to do where they all can contribute and kind of all have their little moments to shine. It's very good and it's really cool. Also, we've got, of course, some females on the villain side with Dr. Light and Eva McCullough. Now, part of the new status quo is it looks like that Kimi Yohoshi from the comics is here as Dr. Light. Now, in the comics, of course, she's a hero as opposed to the female Dr. Light we saw previously from Earth 2, who was Linda Park. But there's no reason to say, I mean, it does say that Black Hole has been kidnapping metahumans and probably brainwashing them. So that could kind of be the story there, is that she was genuinely just this regular Japanese astronomer who got kidnapped and brainwashed and turned into an assassin by these guys. And that way you can kind of start getting her to the point where she can go down that road of becoming a hero and, get some built-in angst for like, oh gee, I did all these terrible things when I was brainwashed. I need to atone for that. And I do like her rather brusque approach here in the episodes, which does sort of jive with the character in the comics, who is not exactly a person that minces words, and even though she's one of the good guys, doesn't really get along with most people. She's not a people person by any way, shape, or form, but she goes out there and sticks her neck on the line, same as anybody else. So it's the other heroes just kind of like, all right, that's just how she is. A little too soon to say anything particular about them having made Mirror Master into a female character. Of course, obviously, just Ava McCullough coming from Evan McCullough. I don't have any problem with that. And McCullough as Mirror Master is something that they've been setting up for a long time, so that's fine. And them using Iris in this way, I mean, it's straight out of the Lois Lane playbook, but there's nothing wrong with that because it really shows that Iris is a person with her own thing going on in life. She's a person of influence and importance in Central City. And I do like that conversation she has with Joe, where she and he kind of talk about responsibility and their own desires to do good in the world. Just another nice, simple moment for her and for Jesse Martin, who again, great, love him as Joe. Speaking of things that I love, oh man, the new intro is so cool, very nice. Let's see. One thing that I didn't like, and it looks like a lot of other people weren't exactly feeling this, is the whole thing with Cisco and Nash, and them being upset about the destruction of the multiverse when we know this isn't true. And it really doesn't make sense that Barry wouldn't tell people, like, oh, Harry and Jesse and all of our other friends from Earth 2 are alive. Now, how that works, what with Stargirl's Earth being Earth 2 now, is unclear, but okay, let's just kind of go with it. But it really, I mean, you kind of have to think that, they would have said something about this to Cisco, said something about this to Nash, and the idea that they didn't is frankly pretty dumb. I mean, it did give us the chance for Cisco to kind of, go off, do his own thing, get his head together, deal with, where do I want to go next with my life? Do I want to be Vibe again? Am I happy not having powers? Lay out some of the details about how, Crisis has resurrected and changed some villains. That whole thing where it's like, I don't even remember owning this T-shirt was great. Um, don't really have any particular reaction to the idea that Nash has a daughter that looks like Allegra. I mean, yeah, okay, nothing wrong with that. I'm kind of wondering if they're going to, like, is she going to be set up to become some kind of Jesse Quick? I mean, if you understand what the word Allegra means, it certainly does seem plausible, but it's just weird to tell. I mean, I guess it's going to go on, a lot of it would depend on whatever is happening with that particular actress or whatever. I don't know. Let's see. And of course, you know, we get this episode to see Barry hanging out with Diggle, which is super cool. A little disappointing that there's no nod to the ring that Dig found at the end of Arrow, but this really was a nice way to sort of wrap up Barry dealing with Oliver's death. Show us that, yeah, Dig is seriously bummed by what happened, but he has indeed gotten to the point where he can move on with his life and focus on his wife and his family and, you know, the new things that are going to be going on with him, where, again, he's probably going to be popping up from time to time on the Superman show that's coming. And, you know, Barry finding that mask from Oliver and assuming this is some crazy message and going off on this, Oliver was trying to give me some kind of final mission. I mean, that really feels like something Oliver would do. But I like how Dig, you know, does have that moment of great wisdom. And that's kind of that's often Big Dig's strength, is that he can kind of cut through the BS and lay things out in a way that makes sense for our superhero friend. And realize it's just like, no, man, that was just that was just Oliver telling Barry, hey, man, enjoy the people that you love in your life while you got the chance. Because you never know when it's going to be over. And letting Barry have that moment where he really does reflect on, you know, what losing Oliver meant to him personally and their friendship over the years. I mean, I had completely forgotten that, you know, that particular version of the mask was a gift from Barry. So that was a very clever touch. I do like that. Of course, like a lot of people, I was pretty jazzed, you know, looking at those things that Cisco had written down on the board in the background, just to go off on a tangent for a minute. Very cool that they included Happy Harbor, of course, where Young Justice is known to hang out, and it was one of the original headquarters of the Justice League in Happy Harbor, Rhode Island. It was actually an interesting thing that they said explicitly that this was located in this state. And just looking at that map, you can see clearly that National City is indeed in California. Apparently Star City is, like a lot of people suspected, somewhere up on the northwestern coast of the U.S., probably Oregon or Washington State. Interesting that Metropolis is apparently somewhere above Maryland. There have been times in the comics where it's been, or in various source materials where it's been implied that Metropolis might be located in Delaware, of all places. But personally, I think somewhere like Maryland or Virginia would also work pretty well. I did notice, somebody did point out that in this world, Gotham is apparently around Chicago, which, I mean, of course that's because the recent Batman movies like Christopher Nolan stuff have been filmed in Chicago. When the previously in the comics and other media, it was always heavily implied that Gotham was somewhere out on the East Coast. In fact, there was an issue of the comics that stirred up quite a bit of controversy at the day and is still talked about quite a lot over the years. Shadow of the Bat Annual 1, if I remember correctly, where it actually expressly stated that Gotham was located in New Jersey. Now, personally, I always thought New Jersey was a place that really made sense for Gotham, just from the vibe that it gave off, but, you know, comics kind of have to go with whatever is, or media kind of has to go with whatever's fresh in people's minds. You know, the Dark Knight movies were shot in Chicago, and, you know, back in the day, like the 70s and stuff like that, when Batman comics took a notable jump in seriousness and such, New York was a pretty rough place, especially certain parts of the city. I mean, If you know the history of New York, you probably know that in the 80s, Times Square was full of pimps and hookers and porno theaters and all that crazy taxi driver stuff. You know, it really was like the Gotham from Joker. These days, of course, New York is actually one of the safest large cities in America, and it's Chicago that has the crazy murder rate. I mean, there's a reason why its nickname is Chirac. And I actually personally once heard somebody getting shot in Chicago. I was pretty freaked out about that. I'm like, oh my God, that was definitely gunshots. I'm staying away from the window. Yeah, yeah. That and that is an absolutely true story. I mean, from what I heard later, the person who was shot was only lightly injured, and it was some stupid argument over a basketball game. But yeah, there's definitely some areas of Chicago that are pretty darn scary. So anyway, um, that's kind of all that I really have for you guys this episode. So, as always, please comment, rate, subscribe, and until next time, take care and have a good one.